Hello, my name's Kate Pullen and I'm here today to talk about how to define your brand. This is a presentation for people who are completely new to branding. Perhaps you don't have your brand identity yet, perhaps you haven't got your brand defined yet. We're going to explore what a brand means, why it's important and why you should have a brand for your business. Okay, so before we start, what is a brand? When we think of a brand, what is it that we actually think of? What is it that comes into our mind? Here are 5 mega brands. Let's have a look at those and think, what is it? What's the first thing that comes into your mind when you think of someone like Coca-Cola or Etsy or McDonald's? It's likely to be an experience that you've had, memories that you've had. It's not going to be the logo that comes into your mind. It's going to be what that brand means to you as a person, your individual response to that brand. And a brand is what makes people choose one product over another. So a brand is what makes people choose Coca-Cola over other soft drinks. What makes Starbucks the coffee shop of choice by millions of people over the world. Without a brand and without brand loyalty, Nike would just be another sports shoe manufacturer, McDonald's would just be another burger joint, and Etsy would just be another online retailer. It's the brand that sets them apart. It's Etsy's brand which makes them a destination site for people who want to buy things they can't buy elsewhere. The Etsy brand resonates with the Etsy target market, and the Etsy target market likes what Etsy stands for. So let's think about the Etsy brand in a little bit more detail, because this is the brand that we all know something about. Have a look at the Etsy mission page, etsy.com/mission, and that you'll find a little bit more about how Etsy describe their own brand values and ethos. They say that they are mindful, transparent and humane business, that we plan and build for the long term. We value craftsmanship in all we make. We believe fun should be part of everything we do. We keep it real, always. This is how Etsy defines their brand, and that this is how this resonates with the Etsy target market. So the brand is part of how the brand positions itself, and partly how it is then received by the target market. So let's think a little bit more about how a brand affects us as small business entrepreneurs. So what is your brand? You have your logo, you have your banner, but do you have a brand? Now, many small business people, when they're starting out, that they feel that a brand isn't important, it's not relevant to them as small business owners. They think it's something that is done by large corporations, and that branding isn't relevant to a small craft business. But far from it, a brand is essential to a business of any size, because it's what will set you apart from your competitors, and it's what will resonate with your target market and get them excited about your products, because they know and trust your products. They know and trust your brand. Your brand identity, so for example, your logo and your graphics are a visual representation of your brand values and your brand promise. So you have to have your values and your promise defined, as well as your graphics to represent your business. So remember that a brand has a logo, but the logo isn't the brand. The logo represents your brand. The logo will show people, it will be a visual representation of everything that your brand stands for. So a brand. A famous marketer called Seth Godin describes a brand as being the set of expectations, memories, stories and relationships that, taken together, account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. Okay, and a markedly less famous marketer, me, describes a brand as being what makes someone love your products more than someone else's. I think that a brand is a series of emotions and feelings. It's the emotions and feelings that your brand gives somebody else. That's how they feel when they see your products, when they use your products or they use your service. And there's a big difference as to why when we brand, why our brands are very different to the big corporations. When Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Etsy, when they create their brands, that they do so to give themselves a human face, to make them real in the eyes of their customers. But we're different, and we're different because of one thing, and that's you, me, us. We're different because we're at the heart and souls of our brands. Our brands is us, that we make everything we do, and that we do it with a passion, that we are very much linked with our brand. And you could say that either you are your brand or you're an integral part of your brand. And does that matter? Well, yes and no. There is a difference between people who are their brand and people who are part of their brand. And that is, if you are your brand, then you are the public face of your brand, that your name will be in your brand, people will know you personally. And that's great for some people, it's not so great for other people. Some people prefer to stand back from their brand and let their brand be up front, and for them to be behind their brand, steering it and developing it. The choice, which way you go, is up to you. And I think that if you offer a service where you have a one-to-one relationship with your customer, with your clients, then you are going to be the public face of your brand. If you have a massive social media following in your personal name, then again, you're probably not going to want to confuse the situation by having a completely separate brand identity. So you, in that case, your brand, your personal brand and your professional brand will be the same. That you will be the face of your brand. For other people, maybe that you have different interests and that you don't want to combine your personal brand and your business brand. You will be an integral part of your brand. You will shape your brand, but you won't be the face of your brand. I've included a worksheet. If you're not quite sure whether or not you want to be the face of your brand, or whether or not you actually want the brand to have its own identity, you go through this worksheet and check off the questions, and it will help you just get a bit of a clearer idea in your own mind of what is going to be best for you. Now, because we know that whether or not we are our brand, or whether or not we're an integral part of our brand, that really helps us on our way to defining our brand, because our brand is going to reflect our own values and our personality, probably. Now, the reason why I've said probably here is because although I think that the majority of the time our brands are going to reflect ourselves and our values, there may be times when actually your brand is going to be very different to you personally. Let's think of an example. Perhaps you are a dyed-in-the-wool carnivore. You love your meat, you love your steaks, but you have a range of vegan soap. In that instance, your values, your personal values, are going to be different to your business values. It doesn't really matter when you're doing your brand planning, but it's something to be aware of, to make sure that if your personal values are different to your brand values, make sure it's always the brand values that you're putting into your business. So, how do you define your brand? We've discussed what a brand is, that it's a sense of emotions and feelings. It's what makes people feel good about your product. It's why people choose your product. But where do we go from here? I could continue talking at you for the rest of this presentation, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask you to download there's another worksheet for you to download. I'm going to ask you to download that worksheet and to look at the questions. And as we go through this presentation now, I'm going to be posing a series of questions which I would like you to think about and answer, and this will help you to define your brand and to understand what it is that makes your brand resonate with your target market and gets them excited, and hopefully will convert into more sales. So there's a number of questions. You may choose to stop the video and go through the questions one by one, Or if you want to just go through and answer the ones you can answer off the top of your head and then do some research and go back to the others later, that's absolutely fine. But that's the plan from now. So, our first question. What do you do and why does it matter to your customer? Now, this is obviously a very important question, and you think it's easy to answer. What do you do? I make earrings. But the tricky part of this is we have to think about what it means to our customer. What is the point of what we do as far as the customer is concerned? The customer isn't particularly concerned about the fact we make earrings. The customer is concerned about the fact that when they wear our earrings that they feel good. So in that instance, that what I do is I make earrings. The brand purpose is to make the customer feel good about themselves. If I made soap, then what I do is make soap, and the brand purpose is to give the customer a feeling of luxury when they bath or shower. So it's when you're answering this question that you're thinking about what you do, but you're not thinking about why you do it. You're thinking about why your customer thinks you do it, why it matters to your customer. Okay. The second question is, what is your brand promise? What do you promise to provide your customers? And by this, we're talking about the things, the deal that you make with your customers, how you establish trust with your customers. So, are you promising your customers that they're going to be buying 100% handmade products that they can't buy from somewhere else, or that you offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, or that you always promise to provide great value for budget-conscious shoppers? It would be the promise that you make and that you will complete, and this is the deal that you make with your customers. This is how you establish the trust with your customers. So that will be different things for different people, but think about what it is that you promise your customers when you put your product for sale. How does your brand resonate with your target market? This is probably the most important question. This is definitely the most important question when you're thinking about your brand and how you are going to use your brand to convert sales. Because if your brand doesn't resonate with your target market, you've got a major disconnect. You need your brand to resonate with your target market to get your target market excited by your products, and so that you're talking to the right people, the people who are receptive to your message. So this whole thing is going to be completely academic unless we can connect your products and your brand back to your target market. So how do your products and your brand speak to your target market? What will make your target market excited by your products? What is it that is going to, when you put a product for sale, what is it that's going to really hit into one of your target market people, and they're going to think, yeah, I'm going to buy that, I need that. So this question is going to be, how do you fulfill your target market's needs? The next one is, what are your brand values? Now, these are the things that are important to you and to your brand. And the answers to this question are going to be short and sweet, without any long research. I mean, you know what your brand values are. They could be things like that you have a high environmental consciousness, or that you provide great customer service, although thinking about it, it's hard to imagine any brand that didn't have this as a value. It might be that all of your supplies are locally sourced, or that you only use supplies that are not tested on animals. It would be the things that are important to you and are at the heart of your brand. What is your brand persona? What is your brand voice? This is a fun question, but it's also a very important question, because again, this is what reflects your brand in the eyes of your target market. Your brand persona, your brand personality, your brand voice, it should match that of your target market. Your brand persona is the brand personality. Is it fun? Is it flirty? Is it elegant? And your brand voice would be the voice that you use when you're writing your blog posts, your product listings, and it's important that you use the same language as your target market so that they feel very comfortable with reading what you have to say. If your target market is in the senior bracket and you think that they are very formal in their way of speech, then you're not going to be writing to them in text speak, that they're not going to like that, they're not going to resonate with that. So you need to define your brand personality, your brand persona, your brand voice based on your products and your own feelings and your own personality, but also based on what the customer and the target market expects to see. Okay, what's your brand story? What's your story? By this we mean what is it that makes your brand authentic? What is it that makes your brand real? This doesn't need to be your life story. You don't need to go back over your history. However, when people buy from you, they like to know who they are buying from. It's a well-known fact, and you'll hear this over and over again, that people buy from people. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. Telling your brand story and your own story helps people to get to know you and to get them to like you and to trust you and your brand, and ultimately to buy from you. When they have a choice of products to buy, they're going to buy the one from the person, from the brand that they feel that they know. What are your unique selling points? Why is your brand different? Why is your brand different from someone else's? Why should somebody buy from you and not buy from someone else? This might include things like that you only use natural fibres, or that you will create custom products. It might be down to your making methods or your location or some of your skills, or a combination of any number of factors. You might have covered some of these things in other answers, and that's absolutely fine. But what we want to do is we want to identify why your brand will be different from someone else who offers the same products or similar products. What does your brand look like? And what doesn't your brand look like? Or what is your brand look and what isn't your brand look? This is a hugely important section, and this is where you think about the visuals that you want to represent your brand and your brand message. You might already have your brand identity in place, or that you might be planning a makeover, or you might be starting for the first time. Here that we're thinking about the style. So is it rustic, or is it edgy? Is it leading edge? Is it traditional? Your look sums up visually everything that your brand stands for, and that we say that a picture tells 1,000 words. So as well as actually writing down and describing your brand look here, you might also want to set up a Pinterest board and pin pictures to your Pinterest board that actually again sum up how you feel about your brand. That you might look at things like fonts that you think resonate with your brand, that you might look at colours and actually create a vision board based on your brand. And I've also said what isn't your brand look, and I think it's just as important to say, yeah, this is what my brand looks like, and as it is to say this isn't what my brand looks like. Not in a million years is my brand going to look like this, because I think having a clear idea of what you like and a clear idea of what you don't like really helps you to tune in on what's going to work for your brand. And if you're giving a brief to a graphic designer to work with you to produce your brand identity, then letting them know what is absolutely not your brand is going to be as useful as actually telling them what you think your brand does look like. Another super important question is, what is your brand position and where do you fit into the market? And this is so important, because if you get this wrong, again, you've got another disconnect. Is your product a premium product or is it an entry-level product? If it's a premium product, does everything that we've discussed up to now reflect the fact it's a premium product? If your brand is priced at the top end of the market, then you need to position your brand as being a premium product, and everything needs to support that. If your brand is positioned at the budget end, it's a value brand, then again, all of your branding needs to support this position in the market. If you have a premium product, but all of your brand, the way you've defined your brand, is supporting a budget product, then people aren't going to be buying, they're not going to be interested in your premium product because it's just not going to be positioned correctly. So you need to determine where your brand is positioned in the market, and then make sure that all of your branding supports this position. And brand authority. What is it that gives your brand authority and credibility in the market? How do customers and your target market perceive your brand? We said earlier that people buy from people they know and trust. And your authority helps to build your trust. And your authority, your brand authority, is what makes you the destination when people not only want to buy your products, but also when they want to learn more about that type of product as well. And your brand authority will be built through your blog and social media, and which will help to demonstrate your experience and your knowledge in your product area. And your authority will include things like your experience, training, qualifications, and everything that sets you apart from other people. You might not be demonstrating these things at the moment within your blog, but it's definitely something that you should look at doing. Demonstrate why you are an authority in your product area. And this is another way that if you're in a product area where there are a lot of resellers or people selling mass-produced goods, that by demonstrating your knowledge, that you're setting yourself apart, you're setting yourself ahead of the crowd. This is a really important thing to consider. And the very last point here is, how would your customer define your brand? If you were a fly on the wall, what would you hear your customers saying about you? You'll find a section on the worksheet for you to write that in, and I think that something that'd be quite interesting as well would be if you were to ask a family member or a friend to also write down what they think about your brand, how they define your brand, and to see where the two combine and what the differences are between them. Right, so putting this all together. If we were in big business, we'd be defining a mission statement at this time. However, we're not in big business, and I firmly believe that whenever we do any planning, as we're doing here, the result must be actionable and not something that we put on the wall and come back to once a year. So the first thing that we're going to do is to distill the information that we've uncovered up to now about our brand, and we're going to create brand essence and tagline. Your brand essence is what is at the heart of your brand, and it's one or two words that sum up how the customer feels. Look back over your worksheet and identify the key feelings that you hope that your customer will have when they wear or use your products. The sort of thing that you might include, let's imagine that you make baby blankets. Perhaps the essence then of your brand would be snug and warm. If you created bright, colourful earrings, then perhaps the essence would be fun and flirty. So look back and look for the way that you think that the customer feels. A couple of words that describe how a customer feels when they experience your brand. And if you don't already have a tagline, and you should do, a tagline pulls together the key selling points of your brand, and it's a catchy, easy to remember sentence. And when you have your tagline, that you should use it everywhere to encourage people to connect with your brand. So you'll use your tagline in your when you're creating your graphics, you'll use your tagline in your Etsy store, that perhaps you'll have your tagline incorporated into your blog design somewhere. You'll use it wherever you possibly can to help reinforce the message in your customer's mind. And with this information that we have now, that it's time to undertake a brand audit and to see how our definition of a brand matches the reality of what we have. But more on that later. Before we get on to that, I want to talk about the fact that you can't force a brand. Your brand has to develop and evolve. So you've defined your brand now, but you can't just say, right, okay, this is it, this is my brand, because your brand is about how your target market or how your customer perceives the brand. So you may think it's one thing, but if they think it's something else, then again, there's this disconnect problem that your brand isn't working. If I think that my brand is a super trendy street brand for teenagers, and the teenagers look at my brand and think, oh, my nan would like this, then there's something wrong there with my branding. My branding isn't working. So you can't force a brand. That the brand has to develop and evolve as the target market sees and perceives the brand. So here's an example. Because if you think your brand is a bunny and your customers think it's a duck, it's a duck. If you think your brand is one thing and your customers think it's something else, then the reality is the customer's perception. So if the reality of your brand doesn't match the reality of the customer's perception, there's a problem. This is why brand development is so important, including the visuals, social media, blogging, target market and positioning. And over time, that you will keep coming back and revisiting your definition of your brand and the customer's perception of your brand, and making sure that you have a cohesive brand message. And now you've established your brand, now is the time to undertake a brand audit. So you must look at your listings, your about page, your brand identity, social media, blog, products, packaging, everything else, and check that all falls within your brand definition. And if not, make a plan to create a more cohesive brand as you move forward. This is your brand audit, and you may do this in one sitting or over the course of days or weeks. But whatever it is you do, or however long it takes you, make sure that you look at all assets or all facets of your brand and ensure that you have a clear and cohesive message. You might even want to ask family and friends to have a look at your brand too and see how their perception matches your view. And when you do this, remember to put yourself in the shoes of your target market. Don't view your brand through your own eyes. View your brand as you want people to see it. When you've identified any holes, plan for how you're going to address this. Don't worry about fixing everything in one go. This is a step-by-step process and it will develop over time. However, by defining your brand and then doing an audit to see where the holes or the disconnect are, you can start to pull it all together and create a cohesive message. Thank you very much for bearing with me. I hope this has been informative and that the information you've gleaned will help you define a successful brand. Complete the worksheets, and if you have any questions, then leave them below and I'll be pleased to answer, or pop into the business development event in Flourish and post your question there. And again, I'll get back to you and help any way I can. If you'd like to work with me on a one-to-one basis, I will happily work with you with your brand audit, and I do offer a brand audit service where I'll help you define your brand and I'll scrutinise your brand as it stands currently, and together we'll work together to define a brand development plan for you to work on. So for more information about that, visit makeforbusiness.com or send me a message. So thank you again for bearing with me, and I do hope it's been useful. And if you've got any questions, leave the questions and I'll look forward to getting back to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.